Hello, parents from the class of 2024. We are so pleased that you're able to join us. My name is Jonas Van Hackey, and I'm the Vice President for Student Affairs and Dean of Students at Gustavus. I'm also a member of the Gustavus class of 1988, and I've served in the role of Dean of Students for the last 9 years. Very excited that you're with us today, and I want my colleagues who will be joining me in this parents presentation to introduce themselves as well. Charlie, why don't you do your introduction next?
Hi, my name is Charlie Potts, and I am Assistant Vice President for Student Life. And my primary roles are to be the Dean for the first year class and the junior class. So I am excited to get to know your Gusties as they enter this fall. I've been at I'm a Gustavus graduate, the class of 2001, and have been at Gustavus now for 10 years in working in residential life and now the Dean of Students office. Megan Rubel.
Hi, everybody. I'm really excited to be here with you today. As Charlie said, my name is Megan Rubel. I'm the other Assistant Vice President for Student Life along with Charlie. So I have various deanly responsibilities that go with that. And I have been at Gustavus for over 20 years. I worked for the first 14 in the campus activities office. So I planned orientation for new students and then have been in the dean's office now for 7 years. Heather.
Thanks, Megan. Hi, everyone. My name is Heather Dale. I am the director in the health service, and I also serve as an assistant dean of students. My role is to oversee the health service and the counseling center on campus, and then I share some roles with these three fine folks in the dean of students office. I've been at Gustavus for 12 years, and am super excited to meet all the students that are going to be joining us this fall.
Parents, we're really glad that you're able to make time in your schedules to watch this presentation. And we just want to start out by saying that it's disappointing to us that we're not able to do this in person. We really enjoy summer sessions where we get to meet and talk with parents and to answer your questions. We know that we're not going to be able to anticipate every question that you have, but we're going to do our best today to try to share some information with you, share some resources, and share some answers to questions that we've had from parents for the past forever, 20 years. The other thing that we want you to know is at any point, don't hesitate to reach out to one of us. If there are things that we don't cover today, that would be information that would be helpful to you. We're available and looking forward to helping. I want to jump in by taking a little bit of time to just kind of share some general thoughts, or as we like to call them, helpful hints from the Hill. There's so much for us to talk about and so much for you to think about before you send your Gusties off to college this fall. And one of our goals for this session is to really give you some things to think about. So we hope that part of what we accomplish with you today is to just help you make a checklist of things that you'll want to sit down and talk with your student about before they begin college. And we even have some resources that we'll talk about later that will hopefully help you do that as well. College is an absolutely amazing experience, and it's a time for so much growth for young people. And one of the things that I always like to say to parents is that I know that there'll be small bumps along the way. Most of your students are going to have amazing collegiate experiences, but there will absolutely be small bumps. And I always like to remind parents, especially parents who are sending their very first student off to college, that what comes to you in a panicked phone call in the evening might look really different 24 hours later. And so I always just like to remind parents to, take a deep breath, assess with yourself and your student whether or not this is a little bump that might look different in the morning or whether this is something that needs attention immediately. Small things tend to blow over. I love the conversations that I have with parents where they share with me that their son or daughter was in an absolute panic and the parent tossed and turned all night long worrying about that panic, and then they call back the next morning and the student was like, Mom, I don't have time to talk. I have to go to class and I'm moving on to other things. And so just know that that's the nature of college students. And one of the things that's tough, I think, about that for parents is that you're not there. You've spent their whole life being there and being able to read their perspectives and their engagement. And now, you know, you're going to have to relearn how to support them from a distance. There will be some moments in your students' lives that will be big challenges. Not everyone's college experience is smooth sailing. And we just want you to know that we're here to partner with you, that we want to be able to assist you and to support your Gustie when they hit those big bumps. And that it's okay for you to reach out to us when your students are in the middle of something that's challenging for them. We have conversations regularly with parents where we talk about what resources are available and how we might be able to support their students, but the conversation starts with the parents. The one thing that we do ask is that if you reach out to us to have a conversation about what might be a path forward for your students, that you just know that ultimately our goal is going to be able to shift and engage with your student in that. And as much as possible, we really want your student to be in the middle of all of our conversations and all of our discussion. I love to tell parents that there's just not a Gustie alive who believes that when they get a phone call or text from me or an email that says, I woke up this morning thinking about you and I thought I'd reach out. And they always will be able to say to me, oh, my mom called, didn't she? And so just know that when you have an opportunity to say to your student, hey, let's get a dean involved, or I remember from a presentation that there's people who are available to help, that there are so many ways for us to do it, but let's remember to do it together. The other thing I want to just take a moment to pause and reflect on is that certainly COVID-19 is going to create some challenges for us, and it's going to create a college experience that I think is going to be unlike any other college experiences that we've ever experienced at Gustavus and quite frankly, in American higher education. And we know that. We know that going in. We know that there are going to be things that are going to be more difficult and more challenging because of COVID. We know that there are ways that your students, just as they've been existing this spring in a world that we've not been used to, that's going to continue on into the fall. A little later in the presentation, Heather is going to share some specific thoughts about COVID-19, but I just wanted to say on the front end that we're trying hard to anticipate the things that will be challenging and to think creatively about how we can help students have the best, most engaged, while also being safe and healthy fall semester possible. And we want you to know that in as much as we can, we are thinking about it and we are spending time planning for it. With that, I think I'll turn it over to my colleague Charlie to talk about resources.
So we have a whole lot of resources available to you, which we have moved a lot of this online, which I think will be really important given the current situation with COVID. But if you check out our page, gustavus.edu/parents, you'll find a whole lot of information that the Dean of Students office puts out on to share with you. We have linked some new documents, the first being some summer conversation points. We know that you're having lots of really good conversations with your Gusties about what to expect when they head off to college, things that they're nervous about, things that you're nervous about. But in particular, we've highlighted a few things that we think will be helpful. You know, talking about finances, talking about getting to class and making sure they get up on time, talking to them about how they're going to do their laundry, how often they're going to visit home, how often they're going to call and text, and how often they want you to call and text. So a lot of really good opportunities to talk to your Gustie and things that you're probably thinking about, but sometimes it's easier just to sit down with a checklist like the one that we've provided on the website. You know, it makes it maybe a little less awkward to talk about some things. It might remind you to talk about some things that you hadn't yet thought of, but we thought it would be helpful to give that to you. So we encourage you to use those conversation points. Talk to your student a little bit about alcohol awareness, the use of drugs, things like that, they are going to be completing an online course to give them some awareness and some education before they arrive. But we encourage you to have that conversation and talk to your students about how they anticipate they will approach a really prevalent and concerning topic on all college campuses. But so talk to them about that so that they're aware, and then encourage them to complete that online course so that they can stay in good standing and register for courses for spring and all that good stuff. But they are required to do that. So they should be receiving that information later in the month, and they'll have to complete it before they arrive to campus. We also have given a handout on the website about student account information and financial aid. Your Gustie can share with you their access to their account. So, and you can see bills and see where they stand with their student account, things like that. Your Gustie needs to grant you that access. So have a conversation with them, right? Particularly if you are assisting with bills and assisting with paying for college. And talk to them about that, how they log in and set up an account for you so that you can log in and see where they are. That's helpful for a whole lot of reasons. And one of those is having that conversation about fiscal wellness and thinking about responsible money management and all that kind of stuff. So there's some information on the sheet about how to access the My Gustavus link and how your Gustie can set up that account access for you. So talk about that too. Also, we have a parent and family blog linked to this gustavus.edu parents page. And we update that relatively often with important information from the college, information that we find newsworthy or interesting about the college transition in particular, but a lot of really good information that gets put out there that we want to share with you to keep you updated. That is one of the official ways that we want to communicate information. So stay up to date by checking out that blog. It's a great place to find out information and get a little slice of life for that your Gustie is experiencing on campus.
Sorry, thanks for your patience while I unmute myself. Charlie talked about this a little bit, but I'll go into just a little bit more detail. So I have 3 daughters, 2 of them are in high school. So I am used to going into the portal that the high school gives me, and I can go on my phone and open up my app, and I can see their grades, and I can see their attendance, and I can see their assignments, and I can really track and stay on top of them. And really kind of know what they're doing or what they're not doing on any given day. So along with a whole lot of other things, that becomes very different in college. There's a federal law called the Federal Educational Right and Privacy Act. Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act that says once a student enters post-secondary education, they own their information. So you no longer own their information, basically. And what that says is that you can't call the college, you don't have a portal that you can open, et cetera, to get this. That's not to say you can't have it. It just says that we can't give it to you directly. So if you want to continue to have that kind of information about your student, particular to academics and grades, they probably are going to want you to have the financial information because it's likely, not in all cases, but oftentimes where you'll be paying the bill. So having the bill and the financial information would be pretty important. But you need to get those things, as Charlie said, by them giving you access to those things. So put that on the summer conversations list about getting that access. There's an address on the slide right here, gustavus.edu/proxy access, where then they can put your name in there. They can assign you a relationship. They can assign you which modules or which pieces that you can see. That could be financial aid in nature. It could be student finance in nature, and it could be academic in nature. You don't have the option to see every single thing that they see on there. There are some limits to that. And about FERPA, just to sort of re-talk about it. We want to share information with you for the best success of your student, but we want your student to be at the center of that. So kind of as Joness alluded to a little bit earlier, you know, if you call and say, hey, can you tell me this, but I don't want my child to know that I'm calling, that's difficult for us and also turns out illegal. But what we would want to do is say, we want to have that conversation. Absolutely, let's get your Gustie involved in that. They can give access. Again, they can give us authorization to talk to you about that, and we'd want them in the conversation if at all possible, so that we keep them at the center. And so we want to be partners with you. We don't want FERPA to limit that, but it does disallow us from just sort of freely spilling information your way. And go ahead and have a conversation with your student about what you feel like you need to have access to, appropriate to your family situation and your student, and that can always change as well. So once it's set up for you, they can make adjustments to that moving forward.
Great, thanks. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about some of the important health information we want you and your Gustie to think about and be aware of. At Gustavus, we are really fortunate to have campus safety officers who are trained first responders that are available to assist students 24/7. Additionally, we have residential life and Dean of Students staff who are always on call, and we've developed a website link for emergency resources. And that link can be found on many of our student life homepages, including the Dean of Students office, health service, counseling, campus safety, etc. We also, I want to tell you a little bit about student health insurance. So student health insurance is required for all students. Students are automatically enrolled into a student health insurance plan provided by the college, but students can choose to waive that if they have other comprehensive medical insurance. Students started getting emails with this information at the beginning of July, and so that system is open and takes about 5 minutes if you already have insurance and won't be needing the school-sponsored student health insurance plan. I encourage you to talk to your students and to go in and think about whether or not you want this as soon as possible, because if you haven't waived the plan by August, you will see a large bill, a large amount on your student's August bill. Now, that amount, which is $2,289, can be credited until September 21st. So there's lots of information on the health service website about this insurance. It is a really great insurance option for families who might not have other insurance, or for families that have students coming from out of state that might not have good coverage here in St. Peter, Minnesota. But for those of you that do have good coverage, I encourage you to go in and waive with your current health insurance plan. Please be certain that your student does carry a copy of their health insurance card. The insurance provided by the school begins August 1st and goes for a year through July 31st of 2021. But if you have other health insurance that your student will be using, make sure they carry a copy or have a picture of it, so that should they need to utilize health insurance, they have that readily available. I would also encourage you to think about whether or not your student will need medication while they're here. We do have 2 pharmacies here in town, one less than half mile away, but there are many online or mail order pharmacies that students can utilize. And I would strongly encourage students to stick with medication regimens and treatment plans that they're currently using to keep themselves healthy and safe as they come to Gustavus. We sometimes hear students say, you know, this is going to be a new experience and maybe I'll try what it's like without my medication. And because there's so many other changes that are happening, we would really encourage you to have that conversation with students that this might not be the time to experiment with medications. I want to tell you a bit about an optional insurance. It's a tuition insurance offered through a company called GradGuard. This is something you may want to consider if your child has a medical or mental health condition in which they would need to leave campus in the middle of the semester for treatment. It is something that does not provide coverage for COVID-19 related illness. So it's something that if you want more information about, I would encourage you to go to gradguard.com/insurance. And note, there are other tuition insurance providers out there. So you could do some of your own additional research if you're interested in learning more about this. But GradGuard is one that Gustavus has vetted, and we have other students that have used it and have found it to be helpful. If a student does need to leave in the middle of the semester, they may qualify for a medical leave of absence or for a family leave of absence. We have these policies in place to support our students and to make sure if they need to leave, that they can do so with minimal academic or financial penalties. But I would encourage you to look at our Dean of Students webpage if you have questions about that and to learn more. Finally, I want to just talk a little about Health Service and Counseling Center. We do have a full service clinic here on campus with 3 medical providers, a psychiatric nurse practitioner, 2 nurses, and a dietitian. We do bill for medical appointments with our providers, but students can ask questions to a nurse or visit with a dietitian at any time free of charge. We do anticipate having the ability to test and manage COVID-19 in the fall, and I will talk a bit more about that on the next slide. We also have a counseling center currently staffed with 4 licensed therapists and a 5th position posted. Our counselors focus on a short-term solution-based therapy model. So for students that are interested in regular ongoing therapy, our counseling center will be happy to help them get connected to a local therapist, either in the St. Peter or Mankato area, or in the time of COVID, it might be possible for them to continue with services with a home therapist through teletherapy. Our counseling center does not bill for insurance, but they do charge for missed appointments because it's really popular for students to utilize our counseling service. And that does sometimes mean that there's a bit of a wait time in order to get an appointment. A service that we do have that's available to all students at all times is an online resource called Learn to Live. Learn to Live is accessible for free using the links and the access codes that are available both on the Health Service and the Counseling Center websites. And your future Gusties, your Gusties that will be here with us in just a few weeks, have access to that now. So they can go on and start to explore that resource should they be interested. So this is a fun slide that we got to add this year that we haven't had in the past, but of course, everything is different with COVID-19. We've created a slogan which we are going to stand by, and we know that as a community, it will be really important for our Gusties to roar, to respect others, and to act responsibly. And this will look like the things that we've listed here. It will be, as a community, we will commit to maintaining physical distance from one another. We will wear facial coverings. We will limit our close contacts. We will do regular hand hygiene, and we'll do daily self-assessments for symptoms and/or exposures to COVID-19. Parents, I'd really ask you to think about what is the plan should someone in your family need to isolate or quarantine. So isolation happens when a student is positive for COVID-19. Quarantine happens when they've had a close contact with someone else. So they've been less than 6 feet from someone who tested positive for more than 15 minutes. If that happens to our Gusties, and I would say unfortunately when it happens, because we anticipate having positive cases on our campus, we will have some isolation and quarantine spaces available at Gustavus, because we know it will not be possible for all students to go home. But for those that are able to go home, we know that the care that you're able to provide at home and the comfort of being in their own home may be preferred to what we can provide at Gustavus. We'd also ask you to rethink how much stuff needs to come to college this fall. We know that it feels like I'm moving away for the first time. This is my new space. I want to bring everything I can, but we just don't have the crystal ball to predict what's going to happen. If our Gusties roar and respect others and act responsibly, and we are fortunate enough as a country to control this virus, we anticipate remaining on campus in our dorms and in-classroom experiences throughout the semester. But we have to imagine that there is this possibility, slight or large, that they may have to go home at some point. So I encourage you to have these conversations ahead of time. I encourage you to develop a COVID plan with your family, one that you'll utilize during the next few weeks before your Gustie comes to campus, one to think about while they're here at campus, and then also during the breaks when they might come home. If you have any COVID-19 specific questions, we've listed an email here. And for more information, you can always go to our Gustavus COVID-19 website.
Thanks, Heather. I am going to talk a little bit about our class deans. So the three of us that you see on the screen, Heather is an assistant dean with our office, but does not have a class assigned to her. But the rest of us, Jonas Van Hecke, the Dean of Students, is the senior class dean. I am the class dean for the juniors and the first years, and Megan Rubel is the class dean for the sophomores. We adopted this model a couple years ago to be able to focus closely on sort of the things that each of these students experience during these typical years. So it's allowed us an opportunity to sort of be content experts on each of the individual class years. And we get to know students in each class year through various programming opportunities, events, individual meetings. And we work closely with students in each of these populations to support them the best that we can. So it's given us an opportunity to get to know, you know, the first year will experience a lot of the same things no matter what year it is. First years are first years. And so we get to kind of know the patterns and the ebbs and flows of what that year is like and that transition to college. And so when your Gustie arrives and has those experiences, we're able to support. I will hopefully get a chance to meet a whole lot of first years this year and have positive conversations as they navigate their first year, and know that every year after that they have a support person in our office to work with them on specific things related to the year that they are. So what do the class deans do? We meet regularly with students who might have needs and want some support, or just need some advice and want to talk to someone. We work a lot with our students on developing self-advocacy skills so that they can speak up and manage their own academic, personal, and other responsibilities. The things that you've been working on for a really long time with your Gusties are the things that we're going to continue working on, and that they'll be able to advocate for themselves. We help them navigate some of the systems and processes we have on campus if they are finding challenge with those. We help them, you know, if they do need some assistance, we help monitor sort of their compliance with those plans or with expectations that we have of them. We sometimes, you know, the Dean of Students office is sometimes seen as sort of the principal's office, like in high school. But really, students don't just come to us when they're in trouble, they come to us when they need support. And that is the primary reason that we exist, is to help them through those challenges. We often also serve as a liaison between parents and students, and parents and the college. And as Megan talked about earlier with FERPA laws, you know, there's sometimes limitations on what we are able to say, except when we work in partnership with you and your student. Your student is often willing and wanting to talk to get support from you as well. And so we often act as the liaison between the college and you. We also do a lot of coordinating of campus resources for students. So we know that sometimes we can help at least get a student set up to advocate for themselves. But then we can help connect them to the counseling center if it's mental health challenges, the health service if it's medical related, various other offices on campus. We have really good, strong working relationships. And we feel confident that we can help your Gustie find those areas where they will find the support that's best for whatever they're facing.
We know that you have lots of questions that you'd like to think out loud with us about. And so what we're going to do now is kind of take our best shot at what we are imagining some of those questions are, and share some information with you. I'm imagining that lots of you and your Gusties are having questions about, when do I find out where I'm living? And I want to let all of you know that our Residence Life professional staff is literally in the process of finalizing housing assignments this week. And they are anticipating that the week of July 20th is when they'll send an email to students. That email will be comprehensive. In addition to sharing with students about where to go to look to find their housing assignment in the Res Life portal, it'll also have information about move-in, and you know, what to bring to campus, and a lot of information on that front. So encourage your students to look for that email, to watch for it. I think that it's likely that their housing assignments may be on the portal prior to receiving that email. So just think that that's a helpful piece, that the portal is the official way of letting students know what their housing assignment is. But for sure by hopefully the week of the 20th, students will all have additional information about that. Move-in, we're going to hear a little bit more about when one of my colleagues talks about the schedule. But we're trying really hard to think about how we can move in responsibly with social distancing, and that's the reason that it's a little different than it is any other year. The other question that we get a ton when it comes to housing from parents of first-year students is, can my student change roommates? And what if they don't get along with their roommate? And I just want to share with you a little bit of information about that. The answer is yes, your student can change roommates. We ask that everybody give it a good college try in the beginning of the semester to get along with a person. You know, you don't always just automatically click with somebody when you first meet them. And so we always want our Gusties to just spend a little bit of time trying to get to know their roommates, seeing if they can work it out. And so the housing folks will talk about a moratorium on roommate changes. And we just want you to know that as parents, that if things are really difficult, really challenging, we're pretty individualized approach to things around here, and we will get that figured out. We don't want your student to live with somebody that they're not a good match with. But we also know that sometimes a good match doesn't appear to be the case in the first 10 minutes. So encourage your kids to really give it a try, to get to know their roommates, to not make assumptions about their roommates based on what they stalk on social media, and to really wait to meet the person before they start to engage in that process of whether or not it's going to work. We get lots of questions about meal plans. And kind of the basic information that I can share with you is that there are 3 options. Option number one, which is the lowest priced option, is the one that everybody will be defaulted into. And then families that want to maybe think about a student who is a more regular eater. That's a weird way of saying that. Or like I think about a lot of our students who are very active, maybe our student athletes, they might find that the lowest meal plan isn't going to be the best bet for them. And so they might choose to start out at a little higher option meal plan, maybe meal plan number 2 or number 3. The thing that I think is helpful for parents to know is that students are always welcome to increase the meal plan at any point that it becomes apparent to them that the one they're on isn't adequate. And so I kind of encourage parents to maybe start out on a little lower plan, knowing that you can always choose to move up. The other thing that I think is a great summer conversation is how to coach your students to pay attention to what they're spending in the dining service. To check their balance and to think about that. And for you as a family to talk about what's your expectation of your students around how they manage their meal plan. If they go over their meal plan, does that automatically mean that families are going to pay for it, or is that something that you're going to want your student to take responsibility for? If they're feeding all of their friends, is that something that's okay if then all of a sudden their meal balance is low? These are just great conversations to have so that everybody kind of walks into it together. Accountability, I think, is really the important point. When we do these sessions with parents, we almost always get a question about laptop or desktop. And what I can tell you is that the vast majority of our students have laptops, use laptops, and love the flexibility of a laptop, of being able to take it to class to take notes on, and being able to sit outside and work on paper instead of having to be tied to their room. And that's the beauty of a laptop. That said, we also, though, have students who have desktop computers, students who utilize our computer labs for their computing needs. And so there's lots of flexibility. There's no one right answer. We also have a lot of parents who will ask us, do our students need a printer? And I think that if we had a panel of upper class students who are sitting with us right now, they would all be laughing and shaking their heads no. Most of our Gusties do not bring printers for their personal use. They print to the Gustavus system printers. You can print a paper from your room to a printer in your residence hall or a printer in one of your academic buildings, and then you can run over and pick your paper up. Those are pretty easy things to do. All students get a number of print pages that they can use for the year, and then they have systems where they can purchase if they're printing more than kind of typically expected. And so, those are probably the two big questions. Really important topic, alcohol, drugs, sexual assault, and we would be remiss if we didn't, kind of share some information. My colleagues are going to talk a little bit later in some subsequent slides about some specific ways that we talk with students about these topics, but the piece that I want to hear you say, or I want you to hear me say, are twofold. One, alcohol and drugs exist on our campus. And I would say that it is not difficult. I want to say that again. It is not difficult for Gustavus students to find friends who share their values of not using alcohol and not using drugs. We have lots of kids on our campus for whom that's an important choice about how they exist and the choices that they make in their life. That said, we know that we also have students who choose to use alcohol, who choose to use other drugs. We have policies. We try very hard to consistently hold students accountable. The policies have sanctions and repercussions for students who make decisions that are illegal, which of course is consumption of alcohol before you're 21 or any use of an illegal drug. And so I think the piece that's important for me to have you hear me say is that we're going to have expectations that we will hold your students to about living within our policies. But we also really know that if you have kids who choose not to consume alcohol or use other drugs, that they are not going to have a hard time finding a social group. That there are lots of students on campus who, in fact, probably more students on campus who choose not to. Sadly, I'm sad to say that sexual assault is also a reality on our campus. We take it very seriously. We take it so seriously that it's an important part of the programming that we do during new student orientation. There's a lot of infrastructure that's in place around providing information to students. We work very hard to be compliant with Title IX and other laws. And we try really hard to talk with our students about the importance of consent, the importance of making good decisions for themselves, of taking care of themselves, and of just being thoughtful peers whenever they can. And so if there is more pieces of that that would be helpful for you to ask questions about, again, please don't hesitate to reach out to us.
I'm going to pick up the baton here from Jonas and cover some more frequently asked questions, ones that we get from parents typically in these sessions when we're there in person with you. Cars. We always get questions about cars, and I think actually what I'll do is flip-flop the two questions on the slide there and answer the first one, which is how important is a car for first-year students? We get parents that ask all the time, like, student says it's absolutely necessary. I want to know what the college thinks about it. And our consistent answer for years and years is it's not that important for them to have it under normal circumstances. So most students end up with student employment on campus, which means they don't have to look for a job and travel off campus to that job. There are various transportation means in the town of St. Peter through a transit type program, to Mankato and back through some shuttle programs, to the Twin Cities and back and up the whole 169 corridor. So lots of options for public transit, even in our really small community. And that's something that's really developed a lot in the last 3 or 4 years, which we're thrilled about. And frankly, students find friends with cars. If they don't have one, they might have a Gustie greeter with a car, or a collegiate fellow with a car, or just a classmate or peer that has a vehicle. And then in former times, they would all just jump in the car and go down to Target. Now, maybe that's not going to happen as easily this year as it has in the past. And transit may not be quite as easy, though, although I'm sure it will still be offered. And so the answer is no. Now, if your family has a situation whereby there are family care responsibilities, or there's a job at home, which is a financial necessity for the family, understandably, that's a reason to bring a car. But just know that if your student does bring a car, a permit is required, and there's a cost to that. It's $280 for the year. And it does not guarantee them a spot near their residence hall. It does guarantee them a spot on campus, but sometimes that spot is on the outer lying edges from where they live, and then they're not always super excited about that. And so just know that and make sure that your student knows that too, that it doesn't guarantee they're going to get close parking and convenient parking to where they want to be. In terms of bikes do require permits as well, but those are free. And mostly they require permits so that we can track them if something happens to the bike. And that leads me maybe into the second point, or the second question there about campus safety, and is Gustavus a safe campus? So I guess I would start with saying, yes, we are a pretty safe campus. What we see typically are crimes of opportunity. So that would include an unlocked bike that might get stolen, or might just get relocated because it was convenient to another bike rack on the other side of campus and is quickly recovered. But those are the kinds of things we see, maybe bikes, and somebody who leaves their AirPods in an unlocked locker in Lund Center. Yes, we see things disappear from unlocked lockers in our athletic facility every once in a while. I'm amazed at how many students leave laptops around in the library while they go eat in the marketplace, and then they come back, and those usually end up really being safe. So in terms of sort of property and things, it's a very safe campus. As Heather alluded to earlier, we have a campus safety staff that works and patrols campus 24/7, 365. They are a seasoned staff, and they are a very caring staff. And I would add too that we very specifically, we don't have a police force on campus. It is a campus safety staff. And our director, Carol Brewer, is very specific about not wanting them to look or act like police. They are not police. They develop relationships with our students. They wear polos and pants. They don't look like police officers when they're out and about. And we do that on purpose because that's not the perception or the image that our campus wants for our campus safety folks. So, you know, in terms of how to stay safe on campus, just making good decisions, using resources. We have a Safe Rides program, which provides safe escorts. We have transits to and from town. Campus safety will respond to anything and everything and act to keep our students safe. That's their number one responsibility. In terms of campus programming for fall semester, it's going to be different. Of course, you've heard that 10,000 times, right? But we are committed, and I'm proud to hear our top level leadership say, if we're going to bring students on campus in the fall, we're going to create an experience for them in some way. And it means we have to be creative, and it means we have to try new things. And it means that traditional programs might not look like they've always looked before, but they will happen. Most of them will happen. So some of that will be physically distant programming. Some of that will be virtual programming. Our student organizations, and we have about 150 of them, they will be active. Again, it might look a little different in how they're active, but they will meet, they will take new members, they will you know, join with your new student and help them get acclimated here and build friendships and find people who have commonalities with them. So it's going to be a fantastic and really, really different fall semester, and we're excited.
We wanted to share some important dates with you. We will also, of course, you can refer back to this video. We will put the PDF of the slides on our parent website so you can refer back to this. But it all kind of starts with this staggered move-in time that Jonas referenced earlier. Residential Life will be sending out much more detailed information about how to sign up for that. But we are really strongly encouraging those who are able, which usually ends up being those who live closer to campus, to be able to come and drop their items. Your student won't be able to stay on campus when they drop their items. They will just drop things off, leave campus, and then come back for orientation. So there's going to be about a 2-week window where signups can happen, where items can be dropped off. We understand that not all families are able to do that. We're strongly encouraging that, but we know that complications with schedules and transportation and timing can all make that difficult. So, and we know certainly students who are coming from a long distance might have to wait a little longer and move in right before so that they can stay on campus at that point. So the 2-week staggered will happen the 15th through the 28th. Those who are moving in, most likely those from a far distance, can move in on the 29th if they can't drop their items before that. And then new student orientation will take place starting the 30th through September 1st. So the schedule has been reworked to allow for some virtual options and some small group options, as opposed to some of the larger things that might have happened in the past because of COVID. So we have a really wonderful student orientation schedule that Megan will talk about shortly. Classes will start, we're starting a week early, as you have likely seen in messaging from the college. So we will start before Labor Day. Typically it's right after Labor Day. We're gonna have our family weekend, but it will be virtual in October. We're gonna have our campus activities office is putting together a great slate of ways to engage with campus virtually and to experience some of family weekend, but maybe from a distance. Fall break has been condensed this year. We are discouraging travel in the hopes that students will stick around and therefore help with not spreading COVID. So there will be a one class day, making a long weekend for fall break in mid-October because we know students still need a break. And then Thanksgiving will happen, the recess as usual. But then after that, as you likely have seen, courses will go online. And then final exams will also be able to be done virtually and from a distance. So students will have the option to stay on campus if they want to or need to. But we will also know that students will be going home to finish their online courses from home and do their exams from home. And then winter break will be a little bit extended this year because we've started early and therefore end the semester a little early. But our full hope and intent is to open for J-term, to have J-term offerings that would start early in January, kind of as usual. So this will make sure to share these important dates on our website so that you can refer back to that when needed.
So a couple of summer to-dos for your student, and you could certainly join in as well. We have had a reading in common for many years, and it's a great way to say, you know, our new students come from everywhere and anywhere with lots of different backgrounds and experiences. Here's one that they literally all have in common. Literally, no pun intended. This year's reading in common, and it has of late been attached to the Nobel Conference theme, which this year is on cancer. So the reading in common that was selected by a team of faculty is called Mom's Cancer. It is available in multiple formats, which is great. It's available online for free, which is wonderful. What you should direct your student to do is to go to the Gustavus webpage, go to orientation, and then reading in common. And there will be links there that they can get it for free online. It's a graphic novel, which we've never chosen before. So that's interesting and makes for a quick read. And so they can go to that website to get access, and you can too. We would say you could read it too and have a conversation with your student about it before they leave. It's a way for you to connect with them as well this summer in the last waning weeks of summer here. One other summer to do among the many other conversation items that we've given you is for your students, and they won't be able to do this for about 3 weeks or so, but around August 1st, they will get information about an online harm reduction course. It's sponsored by or provided by Safe Colleges, and they need to go through a couple of modules. Those are specific to alcohol, other drugs, and sexual assault. And again, as Joness said, we know how important early messaging is about that. And so this is a way to get students thinking, to build some education and awareness into them before they even step foot on our campus. There will be instructions in the information that comes out to students. And then we do track completion. And so they won't be left alone by the college until they complete it, and eventually would be prevented from registering for the spring semester. So just check in with them, ask if they've done it, and kind of make sure if you can. And if you have athletes, then your timeline might be a little tighter even. So just encourage them to kind of get at it right away, because it's easy to lose track of with all of the crazy busyness that August brings. So new student orientation. I don't need to re-go over a ton of this because Charlie talked about this a little bit, of the early sort of drop your stuff off days, August 15th through the 28th. Though if you do that, you won't get sort of the morning, welcome to campus, rush by the greeters, activity and excitement. You also will hopefully miss out on the sweat, the congested stairways, the horribly hot elevators, etc. So it will be a time for you to come with your student and have just a little bit more sane and tame move in and drop off of stuff, which could be very, very nice for you. So if your schedule allows for you to do that, and if distance allows for you to do that, please watch for that, and then you'll sign up for an appointment there. And then again, August 29th, sort of being the day before orientation starts. So if you haven't been able to move in, then August 29th is your target date for that. And then the new student orientation program. It's going to look a little different this year because typically we do a lot of large scale, sort of high touch social activities, and those can't happen this year, but it's going to be wonderful. I just saw a schedule yesterday, and so much work and thought and time has been put into this schedule to really welcome your students in a really fun and exciting way. We do orientation in a small group format. So even though Gustavus is a small place and your child is not a number here, they are a name and an identity and a person, we want to make that even smaller for them when they first come on campus. So we assign them a Gustie greeter, and that Gustie greeter will work in a smaller group, which happens to also be your Gustie's FTS or first term seminar group, or Three Crowns if that's what they are in. And so they'll get to know those classmates even before they start the semester. And those orientation groups will, in a safe way, do a lot of their activities together. Orientation is really an introduction to academic life on campus. It's an introduction to campus resources on campus. It's an introduction to their peers on campus and upper class student leaders who can help them. So that's, again, Gustie greeters who are orientation leaders. That's collegiate fellows who are residential life staff members. They're called RAs or resident assistants at a lot of other colleges. And peer assistants as well, they'll meet, who are health educators, peer health educators essentially. And we'll have important conversations as well. We'll have conversations about diversity, equity, and inclusion on campus. We will have other current issue and events, conversations, discussions, sharing of knowledge and awareness, and it is going to be a really great time. And so we are excited to see your student for orientation.
So parents, thank you so much for sticking with us through this presentation. And we just want you all to know that we are here to help. Don't hesitate to call the Dean of Students office if there's anything that you need clarification on, if you have questions about. The other thing that I always like to tell parents is that the Dean of Students office is a great place to make a phone call if you're not sure where you actually need to go. We know resources on campus, and we can help get you connected and obviously help get your students connected. Couple last minute thoughts. Don't panic if your student doesn't respond to your text message immediately. Why would they be any different in college than they are in high school? And certainly they'll just be working even more independently during their college days. If you're hearing some signs of homesickness from your students and you're able to do so in this time of COVID and social distancing, we always encourage families to think about coming to campus rather than telling their students to come home. We want students to see Gustavus as their home, and we want students to feel like this is the place they belong. And that happens when they stay on campus and when they get engaged and involved. And so things that you can do to help them do that will be well served in the long run. Just another helpful quick hint, post office packages are a really big deal. And every Gustie that I know loves getting a slip in the P.O. box that says you have a package. So if you're thinking about something that you can do that's fun for your sons and daughters, throw together a box of miscellaneous and stick it in the mail to them. Everybody at Gustavus loves that. We can't wait to get to know your sons and daughters, and then you a little bit along the way as well. And we're for all of the things that we don't know how are going to go in the fall because of COVID, what we do know is that we are enthusiastically looking forward to supporting your students, to watching them grow, and to getting to know them. So thanks so much, everybody, and have a great night.